I'm Paul Chek, and I'm very excited to inform you about my new upcoming program, which will be released very soon, Healing Fungal and Parasite Infections, the Absolute Essentials. Everything you need to know that is essential in order to balance yourself after a parasite or a fungal infection is what's in the program. Today I'd like to give you a little overview of some of the things that I discuss and some of the information available to you in my free report titled, Do You Have a Fungal or Parasite Infection? Now, if you can't see the notes on the board, don't worry. They're just indicators to remind me what to share with you. So if you focus on me, you'll be fine. So let's talk a little bit about what is a parasite. Well, the dictionary definition of a parasite is an organism that lives in or on your body and extracts nutrition from you. So if you look at the dictionary definition, by most people's observation, that would consider to be a negative viewpoint. But there are some very, very important beneficial effects of parasites that most people are unaware of. Even people that have been treating parasite infections for years, when I talk to them, are often unaware of the beneficial effects of parasites. Fungi are parasites, and they're ubiquitous. They're pretty much everywhere. It costs huge amounts of money to create clean rooms for assembling electronics and high-tech devices to get fungi out of the environment. So if you're breathing, eating, moving, walking around, sleeping, you are probably absolutely covered in fungal spores, and there's no escaping that. In fact, I recently was listening to the Source Field Investigations by David Wilcock, and he talked about research that showed that a huge percentage of the space dust between galaxies turned out to be bacteria. So chances of you getting away from parasites are slim to none. Now, there's about 1,000 parasites that have been shown to affect human bodies. You can read about that in the book Healing with Whole Foods by Paul Pitchford, which I highly recommend. Problem there is that laboratories only test for a small number. Most labs are testing anywhere from 8 to 12 parasites at most, from what I've seen out there. So lots of people that come to see me come back with multiple lab tests showing that they're negative for parasites. So one of my tips for today is that even if you test negative with regard to lab results, if you have the symptoms of a parasite infection, which I outline in my free report in great detail, and I'll give you a few of here today, chances are good that you just have not identified a parasite that they test for, but may be in your body. Next, parasites store nutrients and share nutrients. So if you look, for example, as I outline in my free report, fungi in nature are symbiotic with about 85% of all plant species out there, and they actually help most of those plants store nutrients to support them through challenging times, such as a famine. So there's just a very simple example of the fact that these are not organisms that you want to eradicate. The truth is, the entire fabric of nature is built from the activity of bacteria, fungi, and viruses. They're the very basis of the biological tree. So getting rid of them would not be a good idea. Parasites store nutrients and share nutrients. One of the issues that I wanted to highlight here is that the research shows, for example, with fungal organisms, that not only will they support key plants, but they will actually share nutrients with their own web with other symbiotic plants. Well, that's pretty comprehensive for a bug that's supposed to be so bad that you want to eradicate. So, one, they feed nutrients to plants. Two, they share nutrients with other plants to create a symbiotic relationship and support nature. Highly intelligent in my observation. They can consume excess and balance systems in your body. One of the things that parasites are known to be attracted to by almost anyone that does any research on parasites or works with them is sugar. We all know that high amounts of sugar are extremely dangerous to our bodies. anyone that's diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic or a type 1 diabetic has some real risks presented to them with the diagnosis. If a person is a diabetic and their blood sugar continues to rise too high, or if it's too low, it causes trauma to the nervous system and body parts. Toes begin to turn black and fall off and all sorts of other unpleasant things. When you consider that overconsumption of sugar is probably the most common cause of parasites, and that they love sugar, it might be very realistic to consider that they're coming to aid us in reducing sugar in our bodies to help us better balance blood sugar, and therefore improve the regulation of many biological systems, especially when you consider that insulin is a key or an essential hormone without which you will die, and is involved in the regulation of most of the hormonal interplays in the body. If you have high levels of sugar, for example, this is just one of many examples that could be given, and parasites reduce that level of sugar, they're at once reducing toxicity in the body. When you look at bioavailable proteins, we need bioavailable proteins to build our bodies out of, but most people eat cooked, overly processed, commercially raised, poor quality animals. The protein in an animal can't be any healthier than the animal itself, and if you eat sick animals, then you're not likely to be able to produce health and vitality from that. If you look at the constitution of a parasite's body, many of the worm parasites have been found to be very, very high in C-reactive proteins or shock proteins, which happen to be useful for elasticity in our bodies. I theorize from my observations of people's diet and lifestyle logs and the type of parasites that they get, that we may actually be harvesting certain types of parasites in order to gain more bioavailable high-quality protein. Now that might seem radical to you that we would grow worms just to digest them and eat them, but consider that many native cultures ate things like widgety grubs and insects when there wasn't enough food because of a lack of big game. The Australian Aboriginals eat widgety grubs. I've eaten widgety grubs out there. Now the look of them will scare the hell out of you, but they taste kind of like a Seventh-day Adventist vegetarian sausage to me. So there is definitely some real possibilities here that the body may be working for us, and that the parasites might be an indicator of something else, and eradicating the parasite without identifying the something else may just be an expensive long-term process, and that's exactly what I see happening. People going over and over again through parasite cleanses and protocols, but not addressing some of the underlying causes, which my program gets deeply into. Also, parasites are very well known to inform the immune system. When you live out in nature and you drink from the local water, you're bringing parasites into your body in controllable doses that the immune system can handle, and that informs the immune system which antibodies to develop to protect you from those bugs. So there's a very, very important information function provided by parasites in the environment. Many people have the idea that parasites should be completely eradicated. That's a dangerous idea as well. One research paper that I looked at stated that of the approximately 100 trillion cells that make up the human body, as much as 90% of them could be considered, by technical definition, to be parasites or other organisms, such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, etc. So eradicating parasites totally would be eradicating a huge amount of your body. And also, don't forget, the mitochondria in your cells, which produce energy, ATP, and are essential to the Krebs cycle, are technically parasitic organisms. They're bacteria that are not something that we produce ourselves. They're symbiotic with the human body. And lo and behold, when people take antibiotics, and too frequently or in too high of doses, they often have the symptoms of fatigue, and it can begin wiping out mitochondria populations and lead to lots of problems. So, do you want to get rid of them? I don't think so. Do you want to keep them in balance? Absolutely, and that's exactly what my report suggests and my program teaches you how to do effectively. Some of the common symptoms, for which there are many, and I list many of those symptoms in my free report. Common symptoms are chronic skin troubles, digestive troubles, eliminative troubles, itching, feeling like things are moving under your skin, joint problems, mental emotional imbalances, mood swings, energy highs and lows, changes in the quality, consistency, and frequency of bowel movements, disruptions in urination. Almost every physiological system of the body, including the brain, vision, everything can be affected negatively by a parasite infection. So to sit here and list all the symptoms would basically be overwhelming, because the symptoms of parasite infection overlap with many other symptoms. But in my program, I show you how to use techniques to differentiate whether it may be other symptoms or whether you actually may have a parasite infection. The most common cause of parasites is stress. Your body adds stresses up. Your physical stress, your emotional stress, and your mental stress create your overall stress picture. If you look at the research on stress by people like Robert Sapolsky, it shows conclusively that if we have repeated exposures to stressors that elevate our stress hormones, it has a weakening or a disabling effect on the immune system. And it is very, very uncommon for me to deal with a parasite infection in a client who also doesn't have significant amounts of stress in their life. Rarely ever, I can't even think of a single case where someone came to me that had a healthy, balanced life and was a happy, productive person that had a parasite infection, unless they got it usually in a third world country, eating foreign foods or swimming in bodies of water is another way to get one. And those people need to go see a physician right away that can eradicate parasites like that, because they can be extremely invasive, but they're far less common than the general parasite problems that we see at large. Now, finally, there are benefits to parasite infection. The benefit is awareness. You learn a lot about yourself, a lot about your diet, and a lot about your lifestyle due to the parasite infections that you have, the symptoms that they create. And in my experience, none of the people that I've coached to heal from a parasite infection have come out the side anything but better because of the process. So parasite infections are very, very beneficial because they produce significant awareness. And the awareness is in areas that do relate directly to keeping yourself balanced in body and mind. So that's my brief overview for you. Feel free to put your name on the list. Right here below this image, you should see a link where you can sign up for the free report and get it immediately. And that will put you on the list to be notified of our release of my new program, Healing Fungal and Parasite Infections, the Absolute Essentials. So thanks for joining me today. I have about 6 hours of great information to share with you in the program. And what I shared with you can not only help you with parasite and fungal infections, it can help you heal your life in many beautiful, simple, and effective ways. So thanks for joining me today.